Welcome to Wilder. Today, I'm honored to be joined here by Matt Shannon, who left his corporate job a little bit over 4 years ago to pursue becoming a full-time wildlife photographer and recently has hit the public limelight with YouTube. Matt, what is it that you think that helped you in your journey to become a full-time photographer that most people maybe pursuing a career in photography miss?
Well, I think that my idea of utilizing the camera to pretty much anything that could bring some income in to leave, corporate job or whatever it is that I was doing before that. And for anyone else who might be interested in doing photography full time, is really just diving in to anything that kind of pays the bills. So that was my initial thought, was that yes, I wanted to do wildlife landscape full time. That would be a dream. And of course, you read about it, and it's like Nat Geo, all of these superstars that are out there just claiming the world with their camera. And how they get to that point is probably through connections, who maybe a lot of education, because I know Nat Geo and stuff, they want you to have biology degrees, all of these things, right? So it's like, all right, how do I stack up to that? Well, what I do know is that there's people in my community that need photography for their business. And so I can fill that void by utilizing something that I enjoy using, which is a camera. And yes, it might not always be birds, landscape, but at least it's a stepping stone where I'm getting paid for the skills of taking photos.
Totally. Yeah, I love that you shared that. I think that a lot of my current success has come from the ability to be more free and open with my scheduling, which I could have never achieved if I would have, just cold turkey kind of quit someday out of nowhere with no source of kind of photography clientele built up or anything like that. And just tried to make the leap immediately. I kind of had to do the same of building that slowly over the years. So yeah, same, probably in a lot of ways. I started out doing the whole wedding thing and then went to commercial work and all of that stuff. So definitely can relate with you a lot on that aspect.
For sure.
So yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's really interesting the differences in mentality approaching that craft as either a hobby or as a business. What do you feel like are some of the key kind of fundamental mentality differences between trying to pursue nature photography as a hobby versus trying to pursue nature photography as a career or a business?
That's a great question, because I think as a hobby, if I were to go back into my early days of what it was as a hobbyist in the photography world, it would have been when I was traveling South America or East Asia. I had a point and shoot. And I just took pictures of my travels up through the mountains, such sort of thing. And I remember posting them on Facebook, I guess, at the time, and people saying, "These are amazing. You should pursue photography more. This is great." So the camera that I got was to be able to just reflect the enjoyment that I got out of my travels, and the photos were just the enjoyment out of it all. When I think about photography as a business, everything kind of changes. I still have that enjoyment, but at the same time, I'm thinking about, all right, what is it that a client or a potential customer would like to see? Even composition, lighting, what are the trends? And I know some of these things could be a bit of a ditch for some people to kind of roll their car off into and feel like they've lost the true essence of creativity, I guess, because we're all kind of funneled into what is selling, that sort of thing. But I think there needs be a bit of a mindset as to how to create a business out of it. And I think one example of that is that as a hobbyist, you might be looking at lenses that take beautiful, star pictures or whatever, so you need a wide angle lens. As a business, I look at the lens or the camera equipment as an investment. So I invest in certain pieces of equipment, knowing that I can get paid for certain jobs that will then pay for more trips, more time off to photograph out in nature. And I decide to take some of the maybe negatives. I'm going to do the
Yeah.
quotation thing because I don't think of them as negatives. I think of them
Yeah.
as opportunities that it gives me elsewhere. So that's where I feel like even on the boring side of things, when it comes to like programs and stuff, I kind of get excited about implementing different programs that help me with my workflow, which is a huge thing as a hobbyist. You probably don't think about emails and all these other things. I get excited about purchasing different programs that like take care of a whole bunch of that back end work that is sort of a foundation for the money flow.
Yeah.
Like programs that help with invoices and that sort of thing. I'm thinking of that as an investment, and that's part of my photography is like those programs, as well as a NAS system that holds all of my pictures and keeps things secure. So I kind of rambled a little bit on there. I think hobbyist is like obviously the lenses and stuff are fun, but you might not think about the laptop or the computer or your NAS system, your invoicing system, how emails come and go. All of those are all stitched together now as a full-time photographer. It's what you got to do. It's the 10% in the field and the 90% in the office type of thing.
Totally.
Mentality. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I love that. That was, yeah, a very complete explanation. And you
Yeah.
view lenses or you view gear very much like that. Like even right now, for me currently, I'm like trying to strategically plan when my next permanent camera upgrade is going to be.
Yeah.
Because I'm trying to figure out like, okay, this is my income level. This is what I can afford. If I buy one too soon and it's not quite what I want, it's not going to be as cost effective as just waiting one more year and then, doing it,
Yeah.
so on and so forth. So I love what you shared about that. And I think that that's really good stuff to think about.
Yeah, I did it actually with my drone. I love flying drones and stuff, but I think if I was a hobbyist, I probably would have stuck more to like putting more money into camera equipment.
Yeah.
That was down on the ground, up close with nature, up close with. But I had some of these jobs coming up, and I did a lot of work. I still do a lot of work for like tourism. So that's where you're shooting landscape, wildlife, people, and because British Columbia is known for tourism and people coming here, that sort of thing. So that's one way where I can make some money, but at the same time they required, or they didn't. They mentioned something about drone photography, and I was like, man,
Gotta get the
I
drone.
could buy this drone right now. And that's what I did. It paid for itself within the first day of just getting that. So there was a need there, and I was able to fill that need with buying a piece of equipment. And yeah, so that's my little two bits about purchasing something for the business, I guess, and not just for, the hobby side of things.
Totally. Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, one of the reasons I was most interested in having you on the podcast today is because of something you said in one of your latest videos where you were talking about business and stuff like that. You talked about how you treat YouTube as a business and not just as a hobby. And so as a business, as a result of that, you said that you have goals and metrics and you're continually kind of learning to adapt for the sake of growth on your YouTube channel. I feel like a lot of creators don't have that type of mentality in the wildlife photography industry when it comes to their art. What are some examples of goals that you maybe set for yourself on YouTube and some of the analysis metrics that you use to kind of track that growth of you as a creator in your business?
That is something that I feel like I'm working out. There are things that I'm looking at, like in YouTube Studio, where you can click on there, you can go to the analytics, and you can see, all right, this video is a 1 out of 10 or a 5 out of 10, that sort of thing. And then there's the retention, how long people are sticking around for, And then there's comparing to other channels using, I think it's called Social Blade,
Hmm.
where you can see what other people are making, what it thinks you're making, that sort of thing. So there's a few of those things that I've looked at daily, obsessing over, that my mind has kind of changed a little bit on that. So the biggest one, I think, is whether or not your video ranks a 1 out of 10 or a 10 out of 10. And I think for that, we can kind of get caught up into the analytics and what that means, because I think if I post about a new piece of equipment, new gear, new lens that just came out, more or less, it'll probably do very, very well. It could be that 1 out of 10 where everyone's clicking on it and viewing it. But in like 5 years or 3 years or whatever, no one's going to be searching for that thing unless it's like an older lens or camera. And then by that time, it's probably saturated with all of these other reviews, blah, 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 that sort of thing. Whereas another one where I'm explaining how to photograph macro, how to shoot macro photography. That might be a 10 out of 10, but it is something that people are always going to be searching for 10, 20 years even. You never know, right? So that might be a slow jump onto that video and then progress over time. And I've seen that with some of my videos where I'm like, wow, it just keeps on going. People are still clicking on it. And I did that one for like a fireworks episode, and I was like, no one cares unless it's like 4th of July or whatever. And but yeah, 4th of July, had a spike, and then Halloween had another spike, and then New Year's Eve, like people are searching for it, and it'll be up there, and it'll still keep getting views over time. But it flopped my first post when I put it up because no one was searching for it. No one cared about fireworks until they needed to know about how to photograph fireworks. So the 1 out of 10 thing, I kind of just shifted off. It wasn't something that I always strived for. I think other analytics like how long the retention, so what's that drop off? I've looked at that, and I noticed that within the first 30 seconds, jumping into a video saying, hey, this is what this video is about. What you've seen there in the thumbnail, the title, it's all correct. Don't
Yeah.
worry, you're in the right place. Keep watching. Though that has been very helpful for me to watch and understand. That might be a great question to ask you, actually, in a flip almost, because my analytics and stuff seem to be very simplistic in what I look at, and I just stay true to just my own content and what I think looks good.
Yeah.
And yeah, and then the retention, I think, is the number one thing, is just understanding how long people are watching for before they drop off. Does
Yeah.
that sound correct?
Yeah, retention's definitely important. Yeah, I'm definitely an analytics nerd. I spend tons of time in my analytics studio, but because even though it gets a bad rep for, like, I guess people get a bad rep for doing that as wildlife photographers, but I do it because I genuinely am fascinated by it, and I really really enjoy it. And I love the idea that I can see something that shows me feedback on how I can improve in a very tangible way. So
Right.
when I'm looking at my click through rate, and I'm trying to A/B test some thumbnails, as we were talking about earlier, the
Oh
new
yeah.
feature that YouTube's rolling out. Even though I don't have that automatic feature yet, I try to manually do that sometimes, and getting to see how those
Yeah.
thumbnails compare or things like that, and seeing why those thumbnails appeal more than maybe another thumbnail. Or I mean, especially when you talked about retention, like the retention graphs, I obsess about those things all day long. And love looking into those. I mean, right now I'm in the middle of doing a 10-week creator cohort with 10 select students that I picked out. And I've been really enjoying going through that with them, and talking about all the things you're talking about and so much more. Yeah, like
Now, do
idea
you look at
delivery.
the
Go ahead.
yeah, do you look at the audience? I find I look at who's looking at my videos, and I'm in Canada, but like it's almost 40% is US viewers, on there. And actually, Canada's not even second. I think Germany is second, or Canada and Germany are almost tied. And where my audience comes from does dictate a bit of my maybe a bit of my my focus, because I find that what we have here in Canada might be like super interesting to Americans that have never seen what we have here in our backyard, type of thing. Europeans as well, I feel like when I travel around Europe, most of the wildlife seems to be shot, dead, long gone. There's so much that like it's so hard, and that's where like at times like photographing a red squirrel is like the best, the most thrilling. Like there's workshops to go and see rabbits in Scotland, and to photograph rabbits. You tell anyone around here that it's
Going
like,
out to see a rabbit.
are you kidding
Yeah.
me? Who would pay money for this? Like I got rabbits in my front yard right now,
Yeah.
running around. I mean, they're cottontail rabbits, and it's just like they're everywhere. And there's eagles, there's owls just down in the trail right now. They got a great horn and a barred owl. So it's just so understanding a little bit of that has changed. Like, I didn't think I was going to do so much. Even owl content, like, but people are requesting non-stop, and we have owls. I just feel like for here, it doesn't seem nearly as exciting as, say, grizzlies or coastal wolves, that sort of thing. So, I find YouTube has been pretty awesome. Where looking at the analytics of where people are watching from is like, oh, I could do a video on this that might not be interesting for where I live, but the majority of my audience is not even from where I live, not even from Canada. So that does open up and not in a bad way. It actually makes me think of, it's kind of like being a tourist in your own hometown. Like when you live somewhere, you don't ride the rides that everyone travels here to do.
Yeah.
So now that I see people wanting to see what I have in my own hometown, I'm now excited to photograph that. And I don't have to travel thousands of miles away to share content. And YouTube has been a huge light on that. And I'm way more excited to get out and photograph what I have in my backyard. Whereas before YouTube, it was all about like, oh, I got to get on a plane and go somewhere exotic to really show people that I am, a professional in this world, type of thing. So hopefully that makes sense. I'm not sure if you look at where people are viewing from. Is it mostly the U.S.? You're in the U.S., right? So. Yeah, it must be the majority of people from the U.S. that watch your content.
Yeah, I think mine are U.S. is top. I think the U.K. is second highest for sure. And then after that, I think there's a couple that come around pretty close. Like I think India, Australia, Canada, Germany, Norway, I think are some big ones around me, or around third place. But yeah, U.S. by far first, and U.K. is definitely second for me. I think... Yeah, I pay a little bit of attention to it, not too much. I think I pay more attention to the wildlife photography culture as a whole rather than thinking about it too country specific. But there definitely is some times where it definitely is pretty country specific why maybe a video thrived. I mean, the two most popular videos that I've ever had pop off are both about a very classic American stories, right? I did a Yellowstone one that got really big, and I did a America's Birdwatching Village that got really big. And I think a lot of the intrigue for both of those are the fact that like Americans are like, oh, what's this birdwatching village in America? I need to find out about this, right? So So yeah, there's definitely a little bit of that, but I think more importantly, I try to think of the whole culture as a whole, what would appeal to the broad culture more than the specific countries. But that's not to say that that's bad to think about at all. I just haven't maybe spent as much time diving into that specifically. But yeah.
Right, yeah.
I think I spend most of my time going through yeah, retention graphs, like what you said, and figuring out how
Yeah.
to refine my click through rate, and figuring out how to, like, within the retention graphs, figuring out how to keep like a really good pace that'll keep people engaged, but not
Yeah.
overwhelmingly so to where it becomes disorienting, or
Yeah.
devalued. And then also obviously those intros, as you mentioned, making sure that I'm delivering, my idea delivery is really concise, to the point, creating some sort of powerful hook near the beginning or whatever, tons of
Yeah.
stuff. But yeah, those are what I spend most of my time looking through.
For sure. For sure. Yeah. I understand. Yeah.
Do you think that there's anything that is overhyped maybe on YouTube and what creators focus on a lot that you would, in your opinion, think like, I don't really worry myself too much about that? Something I thought that was interesting that you were talking about is you do focus a lot on search analytics, or like searchability of your videos and your topics, in at least in what you were saying right now. Whereas for me, that's something I focus only on for my gear reviews, but everything else I do, I literally could care less about my search. So I don't know. Are there things that you think maybe are underrated, overrated, in terms of how you try to pursue your videos? And
That's a great question. Yeah, I'm in a spot now where if I'm photographing owls and stuff, I want to make sure that that's in the title. A lot of times that people click on maybe videos, or maybe even myself, is like how to photograph owls, or how to find owls. Those are the majority of I think excitement with photographers, because either they don't know where to find the owls, and if they do, they might not know how to photograph them. And then when they're watching, say if it's very cinematic, you can see the feathers, the details, that sort of thing. It's just like, all right, I want information. This is going to have education applied to it. And I know that there's a few other ways that you can look at, as a creator on YouTube, or view other creators on YouTube. But I always find it's like, all right, are you educational or are you entertaining? Is it entertainment?
mm-hmm.
And I definitely want to make it so it's enjoyable to watch. It's entertaining. It's eye candy. So I like having the cinematic, the fast pace. I love good music. What I think is maybe good music. And then if you don't have the music, is like the bird sounds, rain, thunder, that sort of thing that you want to implement and add throughout there to kind of enhance the senses, right? But education, I feel like, especially for growing your platform and having people subscribe to you, is whether or not you can share information that they either don't know, or maybe they do know, but you're able to competently share what it is that you're going through.
Mm.
Because seeing owls, if we're gonna pick a subject, and watching them, I mean, Nat Geo, all of like, there's so many channels that have the eye candy of just enjoying wildlife, or nature, and they do such a brilliant job on it. But I think knowing that this person could be your neighbor who's out there photographing brings a much more of a personal connection to that YouTuber. I feel like this is someone I could hang out with, is someone I can meet, and they've explained how this normal person, he's normal right now, he's explained things that I can relate to, or I can understand, or I can learn from, and all of those things trigger a type of connection that you want to maybe see again in another video on a subject that isn't owls, because you already know everything about owls maybe, but it might be something else that you didn't know that this guy has already delivered. So I try and hit those points, I think, on all of my videos. The searching, now there is one story about searching. I was in the Tetons, the Grand Tetons, photographing moose one of the days. And it was the largest moose that I've seen, bull moose, because I live on Vancouver Island, which there are no moose on this island, even though the island's the size of most countries. There's no moose here, and where I grew up at home, We do have moose everywhere. Canada's got moose everywhere, but during the rut, during when you have those big antlers, that sort of thing. Anyways, I haven't seen a whole lot of that. I've seen it down in the Tetons, and I titled, largest bull moose that I've seen or whatever it is, and a few other things. And it got like 27,000 views within 24 hours because of Google. It wasn't YouTube. It was people searching during like a hunting season. People were searching big bull moose, where to photograph, or where to shoot a big bull moose or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And my retention, going back to the analytics, it like dropped off the map. So I had like 27,000 people clicking, looking, being like, "Oh, this guy's a photographer. He's not a hunter," and they left the video within no time. So sometimes having something searchable, like in that case, it was misleading for who I wanted to stick around and watch. And then I also search in YouTube. I open up an incognito window and I type in whatever it is that I'm thinking that I would want to be researching or finding myself. So I type that in, and the videos that come up, I look at their titles and how well they've done, and I download that. So I'm kind of adding on to your last question that you asked, because I do search up that quite a bit, and I play those same titles to my own video. That is still true. It's still something that when you click on it, I want to be able to say, hey, what you clicked on is true. This is what I'm going to be doing. But is also searchable and has those sort of keywords in there that someone's going to learn from it, that sort of thing. So that's my approach, I guess, to that.
Yeah, that's interesting. I haven't thought about the incognito browser before, so that's a good thought. If you're going for that searchability and trying to figure out what people are searching and what naturally is popping up to people unbiasedly with your own algorithm, then that's a great idea.
Yeah, because if you use your own search, obviously the algorithm is already like adhered to your taste and your needs. So opening up an incognito window, you're going to get a lot of like Mr. Beast and stuff. Like they're going to slam all the million view videos up there. But then you just go up into the search find, and it'll still want to, YouTube wants you to watch, it wants you to stay hooked. And then as it understands you're searching and what you're clicking on, obviously it's going to chisel away everything else to fitting your needs. So you keep watching. It's all about feeding the machine. Yeah.
There's a huge psychology to the click. And I think that a lot of times is, at least for me, and I know a lot of other wildlife photographers, sometimes we worry too much about the aesthetic of the thumbnail or the professionalism of the title. And that's something that's really, really hard to get over as a wildlife photographer. For whatever reason, wildlife photographers have a really tough time getting over this, I find. Is getting over the fact that like it doesn't need to look, incredibly professional, cinematic and everything on the thumbnail title. What matters is like that the psychology behind why someone would click on this title or thumbnail is really key and important. So, I mean, it's like the packaging, of a product you're going to buy at the store. I tell my students that I work with on creator terms, I tell them that you can have, you can't make a hold on, I'm trying to think how I phrase this again. You can't wrap a bad product and make it look any better than the product already is, but you can wrap a good product poorly and make it look a lot worse than it's worth. And so I think it's really important when you're thinking about how to package your video that you're trying to present to everyone. If you truly do have a good concept or a good idea, good content, it's important to package it well, because you can make it look a lot worse than the actual value it can provide to people. But at the same time, you can't package something up that's not good in the first place. So it's a good thought. We'll get back to the guests in less than 30 seconds, but I wanted to take a brief moment to let you know about Wilder's brand new newsletter that's available to sign up to right now. This newsletter contains monthly news about wildlife photography and creators relevant to you, and contains a monthly gear discount available exclusively to the newsletter subscribers. The Wilder Leaflet will also be a place I send out updates about our annual live photo competition for our $1,000 grand prize. And I'll also be giving away free things at the newsletter, starting with a free downloadable PDF and JPEG to use as a cheat sheet out in the field. If any of this sounds interesting to you, head over to our website link in the description below and subscribe. Well, switching gears a little bit out of that, I want to dive into maybe a little bit more the business aspect of things for you a little bit more. But to start out, have a little bit of a reverse question. So I'd love to hear you try to break down my business model of how I make money as a wildlife photographer, and see if you can get it right. So I'm wanting to try to do a reverse question in each podcast. And so thought it'd be interesting to ask you how you think I make money in this in my career as a wildlife photographer.
If I guess it right, are you actually going to, let me know? Or is it just like, is it
no consequence planned, but I will let you know.
Okay. I'm assuming maybe it's, there can be a small portion of, like, say, brand deals or sponsorships, where you're talking about a product that you're using within your videos. Because I feel like I've seen that a few times on your channel. So this is not just YouTube. This is just how you make money. Is that the question, or?
All under the wildlife photography umbrella. So not doing any other type of photography work, just wildlife photography.
Okay.
But it doesn't have to be specific to YouTube. So, yeah.
Right. Okay. Because obviously there's the monetization, YouTube pays, that sort of thing. So that brings in money. Maybe affiliate links. I'm trying to remember if I clicked on your drop down to click on any links and stuff, but there would be just probably a small amount. Those are just like bonus points. But maybe even mentorship, and helping other people with their wildlife photography or their channel. Maybe one-on-one. It could be Zoom, that sort of thing. So I feel like it's maybe a combination of those things that help bring in income and stuff, specifically for wildlife photography. Am I close on some of those? Or
so you mentioned mentorships, affiliate links, YouTube monetization, and sponsorships. If you had to give a pie chart percentage, what would that be?
Oh no, I would think maybe if you were doing sponsorships and brand deals can be tricky because sometimes they're just like, we'll give you a free product, and that's pretty much as far as it goes. But if there's like 90 seconds or 60 seconds chit chat about it, you can make an okay chunk. So that could be the majority of, as far as the pie chart, the largest ones. And then you got monetization. I know affiliate links, unless you're getting crazy amount of views, or you're really good at linking up all the different products. For myself, it doesn't make crazy amounts. So I feel like the largest one maybe is sponsorships or brand deals, and then you got YouTube monetization, and then it's tricky because I don't know if you do any one-on-one or you do any of that. So I'm not sure where that fits in the pie chart.
Yeah.
But am I kind of hitting? Yeah.
No, yeah, you're pretty close. So about 50%, maybe about 40 to 50% of my income comes through sponsorships.
Yep.
Probably about 10, maybe about like 15% comes through YouTube monetization. Maybe about 15% comes through affiliate links. Maybe about 10% comes through mentorships. It used to be a lot higher, but I've actually scaled back how many of those I do just because they're very time consuming. Yep. But about 10% comes through mentorships. And then probably about the remaining 30% comes through my annual wildlife photography competition that I do.
Yep.
So definitely sponsorships is the biggest majority of what I do. But so for you, what does your business model look like, and how do you, let's go back to just talking about as a nature photographer. So maybe not your other types of clientele commercially. How do you wind up making the majority of your money?
I think a huge portion would be, I do workshops. I'm doing less workshops now, but I did a lot pre-COVID, and then during COVID, actually, I set up a lot of like outdoor. We had all of these different things that you had to abide by because of COVID.
Yep.
But the nice thing is that landscape or nature photography, you could just be outdoors. You could be separated from people. So I invested into all of those different systems. I also do private one-on-one. I got a fully rigged, Jeep with fridge and power unit, the whole bit.
Mm.
And I take clients out to remote areas where kind of only locals really know about. There's some 4x4ing and that sort of thing. The insurance is really expensive, so you just have to understand what the overhead is going to be, because you need insurance for the vehicle, and then as soon as you step on the ground, you need insurance for that, hiking and stuff, first aid, the whole bit. So as far as a pie chart, that would be, a huge portion would be, say, like workshops, and then another portion would be like, say, private one-on-one. Well, then again, in the Jeep, I can take up to like 3 people. So I've taken small groups on multi-day trips, and those multi-day trips could be great income. So that could be extreme, a huge portion of the pie chart one year, but then other years, if I don't market it, it doesn't go anywhere. So you have to say, hey everyone, I do this, come and join me, type of thing. Same with prints. If you don't market that you have gifts that people can buy, or not gifts, sorry, they could have them as gifts.
Yeah.
Like Christmas time, you have to say, hey, I have these things for sale. You want them. They're really great. And then people buy them. So on the pie chart, prints would be quite low. I always think of that as like sort of the bonus. It can be quite high if I push the marketing, but there's times and stuff in that. Monetization, I shared my numbers on my last video, I think.
Yeah.
And it's not a crazy amount. I think I made just under $4,000 through that. Affiliate links is smaller than that. But this year, I'm actually really working on the programs and what I need to funnel the traffic to actually getting the product that they want. And also, it gives me a nice little gift as well. So, yeah, in a nutshell, probably, workshops, one-on-one mentorships or group jobs, and then monetization, affiliate links. I don't do any sponsors. I haven't done any sponsors or brand deals yet. But after talking to yourself as well as other YouTubers, it's like, it's a matter of time. I just don't know, you want to get to a certain point where they reach out to you, whatever, Squarespace or some of those bigger companies that would pay you a chunk of cash, and there wouldn't be as much negotiation and figuring things out and paperwork. So I haven't gotten to that, but it's definitely on my list to jump into the sponsorships or brand deals. But yeah, that's kind of how my pie chart kind of looks at the moment.
Yeah, totally. That's awesome. I think it's super interesting how our income paths can be so different when we're doing, what may seem like on the outside to people the same thing. So I think it's really important that like a lot of times you can spread yourself very thin as a creator and someone who's independently, owning your own business, doing all this stuff. But really kind of trying to narrow down what is it that I do and like do that well is, I think, really important and like the key to really grow that income and be successful over time. So like for me,
Yep.
I've really made it for me, like, that's why I've cut back on mentorships, for example. I still like doing creator mentorships, so that's what I'm starting to transition my focus towards more. But like photography mentorships, cutting that back more, because that's not like what I want to focus on as much anymore. I want to be more the person that's like, I'm gonna work with high level brands and sponsor their products, or be sponsored by them and promote their products. And I want to run this competition that I host annually and that I put a ton of work into. And those are like the two ways that I want to build my business, And so those are the ways that I focused on, and I'm like kind of laser, trying to like have that laser focus, just niche down on. And I found most of my success coming through that way. But then like for you, it's coming through a lot of like that one-on-one interaction, taking people out in the field one-on-one or doing workshops. And that's such a viable way that I know so many people make their money and their living doing it that way as well. So if you were starting your career over again from the beginning and trying to build up that photography business, maybe in regards to nature photography more specifically, what is it that you would recommend to people who are watching this in where to start and what you feel like is most effective?
Ooh, okay. That is a great question. I found that I wasn't nearly as good as I thought I was. So
That's a
I
good
started
answer.
off shooting, and I was just like, man, the likes that I'm getting from, you got your family and friends that obviously are your biggest cheerleaders. And it didn't take long before I thought I was so good. Now, part of it, the camera that I was using, boosted the saturation. It added, different features, especially if you're shooting JPEG, which at the time I was. And oh yeah, it was just a huge booster of my confidence. And I mean, when you first get into photography, depth of field, all of these things that our eyes don't do. We walk into a room and wherever we look is in focus,
Yeah.
unless you have, unless you're drinking a lot or you have something to really like, upset stomach or something like that. But yeah, our eyes do whatever they do, and we're always standing at our whatever our height is, and we're looking at 6 feet, 5 feet, whatever it is. So you get into photography and you're like composition and stuff. And you lay down and you take a picture of a ladybug, depth of field, and you're like, this is so good. So immediately I just thought it was so good that I would recommend if you're in that bit of a cloud nine state, is to put yourself up against other people. And the one thing I did when I really thought I was so good is that I went to college and I took courses. I started off with the beginner, and then I did intermediate and then advanced. And there were each 10 classes, 3-hour long lectures. And we were in a class with other photographers, and we had to post images at the end of each class because we had like an assignment. So we would bring it in, and the prof would mix them all up and post them, and we had to critique people. We didn't know who shot them. My image would come up, and I would say nothing, and you're waiting. People would soak it in, and then they would critique it. So that, I think, was very important for your development. So I feel like understanding how good you are and how crappy you are maybe,
Yeah.
and how good you can become, how much better you can be, it is a huge driver. Like I still feel that today. I see other photographers. It doesn't take much on Instagram and stuff, and it just fuels me to be better. I'm like, someone is taking this picture of this moose way better than I have. So there's things to learn. There's
Yeah.
things to develop. So developing, I think, is a huge thing, and always knowing that there's more to learn is great. And I encourage anyone who has a full-time job already to just be spending some money on education. And I do that even to this day. My wife will be like, hey, what program do you want to get into? What do you want to purchase? What do you want to buy that's going to help you become better at what it is that you do? And it's not always photography. Sometimes it's business and figuring out the business of this. So there's a lot of value to that. And I think
Yeah.
that's what I would suggest. That's what I dove hardcore into. And yeah, what was the question again? You said
No,
I
you're good.
rambled on there.
That was
Well,
good.
okay.
Yeah. You know
Yeah.
you know what I love about what you said is you were talking about like kind of realizing your own crappiness or how good you are in your own work. And there's a saying where a lot of times wildlife photographers will talk about the saying, comparison is the thief of joy. I do believe that there's value to that statement. Like there is truth to that statement. But at the same time, I find a lot of truth to the statement that competition is the fire of growth. And so what I'm hearing you talk about as you're talking about this is like you thought you were so great because you had nothing to compare it to. But then you start comparing yourself to other people around you and you start to realize, oh, I'm not that great. Like I'm not as good as I thought I was. And for a while that's a little bit disappointing and it's discouraging. But if you're able to take that and reframe it towards a motivating factor to improve your own work and show why you can be just as capable or just as good as whoever it is that you're seeing, right? Then it becomes a huge motivator for you actually getting better at your wildlife photography. And I'd say, in my experience, the number one thing that I see that makes a really good wildlife photographer is a fearlessness to compare themselves to someone else who might be even better than them and to learn from them. And so I love what you were sharing about that, because while, if you get caught in the trap of just constantly comparing yourself, you won't find joy in it, most likely. But if you're able to compare yourself just enough to motivate yourself to become better and then find like the value in what you're doing, I think that's so much more rewarding than kind of just living in a cloud of forever thinking that, your photography is as good as it can be and so on and so forth. Yeah. So I really like what you shared there.
I mean, musicians do it all the time. They listen to their artists that they absolutely love, and they pull from it. You hear a new band or a new artist that comes out with a song. Most people are like, "Oh, that sounds a little bit like this, and a little bit like Smashing Pumpkins, and a little bit like Nirvana mixed." And typically that is where they pulled their
inspiration. Yeah.
Inspiration from. So I always think of like, there's the TV series I think called Heroes, where like the main villain or whatever, he's basically stealing everyone's power by killing them, I think.
Little extreme, but yeah.
A little extreme. I'm not killing other photographers stealing their powers, but I think, especially when I was in a class setting, we're in a setting of learning about asking questions and I mean, if I went there and I didn't feel like there wasn't any room to grow, maybe it wasn't the right classroom, the right setting, because that was what I was looking for. I wanted to see, all right, someone did something that I was impressed by. Now I got to learn, okay, what is it that they did that I like? Immediately I think about how, like, I get excited. I don't think of, I know if you're scrolling on Instagram, you can be like, wow, there's so many great shots here. I feel like I'm just at home. I'm not out exploring. I'm not out shooting. And you can get, especially if you're scrolling through, but if I take it from a education, how I could improve.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, like you were mentioning, I think you just change your mindset and you equip it to this now, I'm just searching now for what it is that I can do or how I can do it. And it becomes exciting. It becomes like, all right, I have a new path, a new plan. Yeah. And, I think that's the best way to approach it. And having these conversations like this with other creators is, I think, super important. Not hiding behind, my phone and just watching your beautiful shots, thinking like, oh, I got, what is it, mofo or no, mofo?
FOMO. Not mofo, FOMO. Yeah.
I got FOMO, and it's just like, no, why don't like have a conversation or listen or get excited, be like, hey, listen, would you like to shoot together? And a lot of photographers are lone wolves. I understand it's a comparison. It's like, but I think there's so much positivity in both. Everyone's work can be elevated. And same with the music industry. It's not like I'm not going to go listen to a band because I'm like, oh, I love their music more than mine. It's just like, learn from it. What is their stage presence like? The lighting, their guitar riffs. Is there something to learn from that? And photographers can do the exact same thing. I think.
Totally. Yeah, I'm a just as a hobby, but I am a musician myself, and one of the most inspiring things for me is watching. I do keys or piano, all that stuff, and so watching another like pianist play something just incredibly like more complex than I could ever hope to play someday is like so inspiring to me. And there's two routes of looking at it. I could look at it and be like, well, I'm never going to be as good as that. Might as well give up now. But then there's the route of like, that's really cool. How can I get closer to that? And I think that too many times wildlife photographers take the first route of like, oh, well, like I'm not going to compare myself because if I do, I'm just going to, have that first mentality, So
Yeah.
I think that's why, and you had a really good point about talking about the disconnect there of like, for example, simply just scrolling through Instagram for forever and never talking and interacting with these people and just always being a third party perspective versus there's something different that happens when you connect with someone and then are able to admire or be motivated by them. So that's why with my annual competition that I host, a huge thing for me was I was looking around the space of wildlife photography competitions around the world, and I didn't see a single one where it felt to me like the person who's submitting the photo is getting to interact on a deeper, more valuable level with the other members that are submitted or the other participants and with the people who are hosting it. And so that's why for me, when I created it, it was essential that this was going to be a live thing, is because the live aspect takes it from being something where someone's submitting a photo to a competition, barely getting to hear anything more than a sentence back about it, most likely, and then kind of just feeling disappointed because they didn't live up to the standard. Rather, with my competition, because it's live, you're getting to see this stuff. You're getting to interact with the other people who have also submitted. Now you have a connection point to other people, and you don't feel like they're your enemies, but you feel like you're in friendly competition, right? And then that's why I always do a recap afterwards too, showing off all the photos that I had submitted through the competition, is because my heart is to be like, if you submitted a photo, I want to be able to address that and show what I liked about it and what you did well, what could have been improved. That way it doesn't feel like you're just kind of like speaking out to the abyss. So
For sure. Yeah. No, great idea. Yeah.
So yeah, I love everything you're talking about, and I'm super passionate about a lot of things you said. I'd love for you also. So what I'm going to have you do is I had you share a little bit about what you would do if you restarted your business, right? And some of the things that you would make sure to do again. But I'm actually going to ask you to share two of the biggest time wasters that you spent at the beginning of your business career, like two things that if you were to restart your business, you would not do and you would avoid because they kind of wasted your time. And so I'm going to ask you to share those on my new newsletter that I just launched. So for everyone that's watching, I'll have Matt come on and share a little guest kind of tips on my newsletter. So make sure you subscribe to that below if you want to get more of that. And Matt also has a newsletter, which I'll be linking in my newsletter as well. And you can go and subscribe to his. And we both have great and valuable stuff there at the newsletter. So yeah, I love everything you were sharing and really appreciate what you had to say there and stuff that I'm really passionate about as well. Is there any next big career goal steps for you in your wildlife photography of where you're heading next? And that you're most excited about?
There has been a few locations. So with my YouTube channel, there has been a lot of emails coming in about workshops, locations of where I'm going to be shooting. Like even today, it's like, hey, do you have workshops that are going on in Yellowstone and the Tetons? Because a couple of people wanted to either book me one-on-one, that sort of thing. So my mind is racing into these different, like, all right, where could I go? What could I shoot? Now I had my firstborn a little over a year ago, so my time was shifting more to that and the development. Like now I'm a dad. I got all of these things that I'm thinking about, planning around. And with workshops, I typically want to go out and do the workshop kind of myself, interact with boat drivers, the lodge, if we're staying at lodges, that sort of thing. So it takes like at least a whole year to not only line it all up, but then promote it, market it, and then have people sign up for it, and then you go ahead and do it. So what's going on in the future is, sea wolves, more of the, grizzlies. I got grizzly workshop happening this year. More landscape workshops as well. So again, like the remote locations that I talked about, that I mostly take people in the Jeep. We got a lodge, and that's all included, going to these different locations to photograph long exposures, waterfalls, caves, hidden areas, giant trees. So I got that's happening, and then recently I've got a few emails saying like, come to Africa. We got all these things. We got this and that, right? So, yeah, I think I'm going to stick to North America a little longer and instead of kind of jumping all over the map. And so this year is going to be very busy. Some workshops, but um, a lot of projects that will be workshops in 2025, if that makes sense. So yeah, there'll be YouTube videos and stuff that are going to be popping out that is going to be like, oh wow, awesome. And depending on how that goes and the content and how I can have things set up, that will be of a available spot that I can have clients and people book for 2025. So this year is going to be a big year, busy year, and then a lot of that's going to be offered next year in 2025.
I love that. That's super cool and very exciting. So
Yeah,
yeah.
super exciting. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
We'll have to make a deal. I'll work with you on how to get sponsors and get good brand deals, and you'll have to work with me on how to host good workshops.
Oh yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, I just got some emails today saying come to the Tetons or whatever, and you were just there, Yellowstone and stuff. So, and then you're down in California
I am.
area.
Yeah.
Oh, the Oregon coastline, the giant trees down in Northern California. Woo, there's some beautiful spots. I mean, you still have to figure out like what is it that people want to shoot? What's going to be, what can you offer that people are actually going to book
Yep.
and come with you, and then mitigating all the different risks and blah blah blah. But yes, we should indeed.
Yep. We'll have to talk. As I always ask to everyone that I interview, if you had to pick one thing, what is the single most important thing to wildlife photography?
Oh no. What is the single most important thing?
Yep.
Well, I'm going to tell you what is on the top of my head that just popped in there. Mine is I photograph wildlife knowing what I'm going to do in the editing process. So this is just on the, I guess, the photography side. Or I mean, ethics is probably the first thing. It's just like, okay, how, like, did you grab the baby eagle,
Being a good human.
and prop it up on a stump or something like that to take pictures of it? You probably shouldn't have done that. So definitely ethics is a huge thing for, especially here, everyone's watching you. And now if you're in a position as a professional that people are watching your every move, ethical photography is definitely a big thing. And, so that's huge. As far as the creative process, I photograph a lot of the times knowing what it is, what sort of artistic influence that I enjoy in the post-processing. And not always. I mean, a lot of the times the wildlife does whatever it wants to do, right? It comes forward, backwards, it flies, it runs, and you pick your composition and that sort of thing. But I don't allow, I guess, a blue sky, middle of the afternoon, phase me from not taking a photograph of wildlife. I think, okay, harsh lighting, it's just going to be trickier. It's going to be harder. Okay, what do I want to come up on my raw file when I post it on my laptop? Well, I don't want the highlights to be blown out unless I wanted a super high key image. And so I think about some of those things about what am I going to be doing when I'm editing? Because at the end of the day, whatever comes on my computer is what I'm going to be cursing myself out in the field for later on. So I think middle of the day, I got crazy high, bright splotches, this and that. I'll make adjustments in the field, photographing for that. Heat rays, like all of those things, I'm thinking, how is this going to screw up my post-processing, or how can I mitigate like the best outcome? So
Love it.
I think of that, but yeah, I probably the first response would be like, I guess, ethical photography, baiting and all of that is just, it's something that I hope that I always keep true. I think once you get in that exciting, like I got this amazing shot because I did something that you shouldn't have, is probably a bad habit to get into. Because once you get into that, you start thinking like, oh man, every shoot, you just want it to be better, easier, more, you want to get the shot right. And ethics, I think, is a big thing. So
Totally.
let's say that's my one and only one. And then the bonus feature would be like how I edit, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. That's good. I don't think I've ever had someone mention that before when I've asked them into insights about what you said about the editing. The ethics part, yes, plenty, but the editing kind of foresight. So that's a really good thought, and like love that you shared that. So yeah, well, thanks for being on here today. You shared some really valuable stuff. Thank you for letting us take a kind of a deep dive into your business a little bit more, and kind of how you perceive things. And it was great getting to have you on. So.
It's a huge pleasure. Thank you. Yeah, I'm honored to be here sharing and talking. So I'm hoping more creators, kind of, even for myself, having other people coming on. I think it sharpens my business. It sharpens my photography, and knowing what it is that you do, what I can do, and connecting. And then hopefully we can hang out sometime, actually do some shooting, and so nothing but positivity, and huge thanks on your end for inviting me on here. So I'm super pleased, and thank you to everyone who's listening and watching. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Yep. Love it. Thanks, Matt. Thank you all for watching. If you'd like to see more from Matt Shannon, make sure to head over to his channel in the description below. To celebrate the launch of Wilder this month, I'm releasing a series of 3 interviews with prominent wildlife photography YouTubers. So subscribe below and turn on notifications if you want to make sure to catch those when they come out. And make sure you subscribe to our brand new Wilder Leaflet in the description, the newsletter with exclusive wildlife photography news and gear discounts. See you next time.